Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today I just wanted to talk a little bit about Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. This will have spoilers. I had a chance to see the movie last night on opening night, and I wanted to talk about that. Just real quick before I dive in, I wanted to mention again that my comic Cthulhu vs. Uncle Sam, currently live on Kickstarter. I'll have the links down below if you're interested in checking that out. But again, spoilers. We're going to have a bunch of spoilers here as I talk about Black Panther 2 Wakanda Forever. So I'm giving you this chance to stop the video. If you don't want to be spoiled, you'll probably want to stop the video now and instead go to my Kickstarter. You know, you're not doing anything else, right? Okay, so let's talk about the movie. Just say right up top, I thought it was good. Parts of it were very good. I didn't think it reached the heights of the first movie, except in patches. It wasn't as consistent as the first movie. I'll get into that a little bit, but I thought it was good, and some parts of it were excellent. I'm going to address Namor first, because I know in the comics community there's been a lot of people that are like, oh, he doesn't look like Namor, you know, why does he look different? Why does he have... You know, there's certain things about, his name, blah, blah, blah. Namor was awesome. The best part of the movie for me, Namor. Really fantastic. Actor just absolutely killed it. The designs, the set designs of his underwater kingdom were all excellent. The backstory was excellent. I loved everything they did with Namor. I'm typically not a huge fan of undersea adventures across the board in any medium, really, any stories. So while I like Namor just fine in the comics, he's not my favorite. This to me is probably the most interesting version of Namor I've seen. I thought it was really great. So that completely worked for me. Also really great in the movie, Angela Bassett as the Queen. Excellent. Really good acting across the board, but she in particular just completely knocked it out. Now, the movie's really about grief. It's about processing grief or not processing grief. So, I thought they did a really good job of paying tribute to Chadwick Boseman. I thought they did some really good character work, and when the moments were focusing on that, the movie was excellent. It was more uneven than the first movie. To me, the first Black Panther is probably, I have it number 2 in terms of the MCU movies, just behind Winter Soldier. I thought it was excellent. The only things about the first movie that I thought dragged it down a little was the parts that were too MCU superhero stuff, particularly the ending of the movie where there's like a half-hour fight scene, and the movie's not really about fighting, the first one, in that way. And so it felt like a spectacle that sort of took away from the story. And I thought it would have been a movie that was better if they hadn't have tried to make it in the MCU style, right? That's the case here in the second one, but even more so. The parts where they're really focusing on the character and the grief, the interactions, and Namor and stuff, there's conflict, but there's not a whole lot of fighting necessary in a lot of that stuff, and that's where the movie's really good. Where it gets bogged down is some of the conflicts. Some of it was interesting. I do want to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but to me, there was a bit of a disconnect there. That also comes into play with Riri Williams. Now, she was fine, the actress was fine, the character was fine. The only thing with it for me was that the role she played in the movie did not require that to be Riri Williams. It could have been any MacGuffin scientist character. So again, it was fine that it was her, because, and it's fine, but it didn't add as much as it should have. There was certain thematic elements, particularly the parallels between Shuri and Riri as young female black scientists. That is something that they could have really dug into, and they really didn't get into Riri's character at all. So that was a big missed opportunity, and that's where a part where I kind of felt the Kevin Feige string pulling in a way that don't really feel through most of either of the Black Panther movies, but here was a case where it was like, it's fine that she was in it and the character was fine in it, but it didn't really add anything other than setting that character up. And it's disappointing because it could have. I can, like I just said, I could see lots of ways where it could have really added something to the film that they just didn't get into. So that was kind of flat for me. In terms of the big fights that I was mentioning, one thing that was really interesting as commentary is that you have these two societies that are sort of from marginalized people, and they should be natural allies, and instead they're fighting each other. I don't want to get into the political stuff too much, but I do think it's an interesting parallel looking at just sort of race in America, how there are a lot of different groups that should be natural allies, but you see racism among different minority groups that keep people divided when they should be united. And so it was actually kind of difficult to watch some of the big action sequence at the end, particularly because it was driven by Shuri's need for revenge. And so when you have these two societies that should be working together and be friendly, just killing each other to satisfy revenge on Shuri's part and fear on Namor's part, was really hard to root, for anybody in the fight. All you were rooting for was for the fight to end, which is the way we really should be rooting for any, war to be. We shouldn't, but when they're fighting Thanos, the armies of Thanos, you're like, yeah, kick their butts. In this fight, you sympathize with both sides, and you just didn't want them to be fighting. And there was definitely a feeling like they didn't need to be fighting. It was made pretty clear in the conversation that Shuri has with M'Baku before they go on that last big battle, where he's counseling against going because he knows that it's driven by revenge and anger and not the best interests of the people. And he can't convince her otherwise. And so you have like all of these Wakandans, like almost the entire Wakandan army that goes on that mission to get killed. And it did not need to happen. It didn't need to go that way. So that made it a little bit hard to fully sympathize with Shuri, because up to that point you're definitely emotionally, you understand where she's coming from, but you also want her to make better decisions in that moment. And when she goes to the spirit world and the person that meets her there is Killmonger, something has gone wrong with Shuri. And so it just made it the third act of the movie kind of difficult as a viewer, because you just wanted them to stop fighting the whole time. So in that sense, it was actually really interesting. But again, it was a little bit hard. I think we're trained as superhero movie fans to want to root them on to kick some butt in the third act when they have the big fight at the end of the movie. And here, it was just really hard to do that. I felt uncomfortable, and it wasn't just me. I know other people in the theater felt the same way. I know my wife felt the same way. So, not a perfect movie, uneven, and you could feel some of the marvelness of it in places that sort of dragged it down a little bit, but still quite good. Excellent acting, excellent character study of grief when they allowed them to get into that instead of the plot and the superhero fighting stuff. And Namor, absolutely fantastic. Can't wait to see more of Namor. I just loved everything about that. So for me, I come out of the theater, I would give it an 8 out of 10, but I always tend to overrate things a little bit in the moment. It takes a little while to calm down. So I would say probably a 7 out of 10, 7.5. Like it's still up there, but some of the scenes show a little bit more once once the emotions have gone, you can really look at it. I felt like the stuff with Okoye didn't really land. You know, she's stripped of her rank, she's tossed out of the Dora Milaje, and we don't really see anything from that. Like, that doesn't, there's no character moments with that. The only thing that seems to serve as a plot purpose to get her into the new super suits, and so we end up with yet another batch of characters that are Iron Man clones, which is a problem throughout the Marvel movies. You know, big problem with Spider-Man is they make him into Iron Man by giving him the Iron Man Spider-Man suit. We have the same thing here where we take several members of the Dora Milaje and we turn them into cut rate Iron Man. We have Riri Williams wearing an Iron Man suit. Someone in the movie even says she has an Iron Man suit. And so we get like a bunch of Iron Men in a story that where we don't need Iron Man. So that's sort of a Marvel like setting up Disney Plus TV show sort of thing in a way that doesn't really serve the story or the characters. And so all of those sort of things drag the movie down. I have the feeling that if Ryan Coogler had been allowed to just do what he wanted to do without having to satisfy the like corporate demands, this movie would have been a 9 out of 10. But because of that, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. So definitely worth seeing. Again, I can't stress enough how much we and I just love the Namor stuff. Carried the movie really to a large degree in parts where it just wasn't quite necessarily firing, or slower parts, like just having Namor there. He was just absolutely great. So, and other characters, you know, just to talk about it real quick, I know there's been some backlash against Namor, but they were never going to be able to do the Atlantis stuff. Like, they can't do any of the traditional Namor stuff because the Aquaman movies beat them to it. And since Aquaman and his origin stuff was a complete ripoff of Namor, there was no way for Marvel to do any of that stuff without the general populace feeling like it was just a retread of Aquaman. So they had to always do something different, and what they chose to do was just fantastic. So that's it. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you next time.